evening, everybody. I'm just going to give a couple minutes for everyone to get in, log on. It's a little bit different than the usual, so just hang in there and hello. And if you want to tell me, hi, Jeremy, nice to see you. If you guys want to make yourselves known, say hello. Tell me your name. Tell me what's going on. Tell me if you watch me often or if this is something new. Don't be shy. I love to hear people. But if you're not comfortable talking, that's quite all right. Maybe as time goes on, people will get a little more comfortable. So I'm just going to hang out for just a few more minutes and just give people a couple more minutes just to get set. So just hang in there, get your notebooks ready, get your pens out, and get ready for some great information about living with the narcissist. Thank you guys for watching The Rebellious Counselor tonight live, Living with the Narcissist. Okay. Hello, Stace. What's happening? Nice to see you guys here. All right, so the viewers it's going up. So I just want to give it a few more minutes. Just let everyone just jump in, get ready to say hello, and get involved. So we're just giving you a couple more minutes. Everyone just hang out, enjoy the music. Hello, everybody. All right, guys, let's see. It is 7:03, I think. Let's see, 7:04. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. So I'm going to bring down the music and say hello and welcome to Living with the Narcissist. Such a hot topic, and so many people love talking about narcissism. And I have a couple of ideas as to why that is. I think we live in such a narcissistic society today. So we're going to get into the nitty gritty tonight. We're going to talk about how narcissism develops. We're going to talk about what it looks like. We're going to talk about some of the behaviors and some of the some of the ways it feels living with a narcissist and how we can handle that and what we can do about it. So we have 90 minutes tonight, a lot of information, and I really urge you guys to participate. I love hearing from everybody. And hi, Sandra, and hi, Eric, and I'm so happy to see everybody here. So we have a big spectrum of information to get to tonight, but before we get into it, I just want to ask everybody who's watching, are you liking the Actuation Counseling page? If you haven't liked it, please like my page so you will get all the updates on all of my lives and all of my posts. It's very important that you follow and like the Actuation Counseling page. Also, on Instagram, if you're an Instagrammer, I am at Eliz Therapist, and anyone who uses Instagram knows that all the page names are at whatever you choose your name. I am Eliz Therapist, and everything is listed on this event site. So if you forget, which is possible, and you're not writing it down, which is okay, then you can also check afterwards and make sure you go to my YouTube channel, which is all you have to do is go to YouTube and type in hashtag The Rebellious Counselor, and you will get to my YouTube channel. So, without any further ado, let me welcome you guys. And I see there's a lot of people watching, so if you are shy about, saying how you really feel, that's okay. You don't have to say anything, and we're just going to talk about it. Okay. So what is narcissism? A lot of people misuse this word in pop culture. Now it's very popular to call everybody a narcissist, and I hear it overused quite a bit. But narcissism is actually narcissistic personality disorder. So it's a personality disorder, which is different from mental health disorders. So for example, if we're talking about depression, or we're talking about even addiction or bipolar disorder, all of those things are considered mental disorders. And it's important to understand the difference, because mental disorders are considered treatable and temporary. So if you come to me or you come to a psychiatrist and you're depressed, with medication and therapy, and hopefully mostly therapy, not as much medication, we can arrest your symptoms of depression and you won't be depressed anymore. So it's temporary and treatable. But when we're talking about personality disorders, it's a whole different ballgame. And personality disorders are considered lifelong, pervasive patterns of behavior that develop early in childhood and usually around adolescence, and the patterns continue to become more and more sort of iced in as the person ages. And a lot of people ask me, does it ever correct itself? Does it ever go away? And there's really no research to prove that it does, but there's no research to prove that it doesn't. From my experience, I've noticed that once people get, maybe past 75, they start to calm down a little bit if they have a lot of family. But a lot of times it just doesn't go away. So you might have a grandmother or a grandfather or an elderly parent that drives you crazy, that's narcissistic. And I've had so many clients in that situation throughout my 13 years of doing this. So narcissism knows no age. It knows no socioeconomic class. It knows no gender. It is predominantly male. Most the higher number of narcissists tend to be men, but that's also how, and who's presenting in different mental health institutions, which is where we get our statistics. And I've met plenty of narcissistic women in my day. So I would, definitely say that men and women alike can be narcissistic. But if you look at the statistics, it will tell you that there's more male narcissists than female. Okay? So that's essentially, when we're talking about narcissism and we're throwing this word around, oh, he's a narcissist or she's a narcissist, be careful and don't believe everything you read online, because I've read some things online that are inaccurate. Today anybody, with a webcam can get on the internet and define mental health disorders without credentials or degrees or the knowledge. So be very careful who and what you watch. And when you're really seriously involved with a narcissist, make sure that you're getting in touch with a professional that knows what they're talking about, because it's actually pretty serious and it's not something that you can make go away. It's not something that I can make go away, and I'm a professional. Narcissism is pretty fixed. But that being said, narcissism also happens on a spectrum. So you may have somebody who has a few features of narcissism, of narcissistic personality, and someone who's, all the way, a pathological narcissist at a 12. So we look at a spectrum from 1 to 12 when we're talking personality disorder. So your narcissistic husband or wife or brother, sister, parent, boss, whatever, they could be anywhere from a 1 to a 12. And that's really something that a professional would have to really look into and diagnose for you. But basically, there are 9 criteria officially in our diagnostic manual that somebody must meet at least 5 of those 9 to be diagnosed as having narcissistic personality disorder. But you might know someone who has 2 or 3 of those traits. So it can, you may see a couple traits and go, whoa, this guy's kind of crazy, or this chick is out of her mind. And then sometimes she might seem okay, or he might seem okay, and you might go, I'm not sure, are they a narcissist or not? And that might be because they get lost somewhere in the middle, where they have traits, they don't have the full disorder. So, it can become a little confusing. So I want to just, explain that, put that out there so that everybody understands that it's not as cut and dry as people tend to think. And everybody has a narcissistic boyfriend or girlfriend. You know, it just seems like it's very popular. So, okay. Hi, everybody. If somebody new came in, hello. I think somebody did. Hi, Marjorie. Welcome. So we're talking about laying out the narcissist. So narcissistic personality disorder, how does it develop? How does it develop? Um, we can always look to childhood because childhood will tell you a lot about a person, right? So if children experience a lot of trauma, that's usually when the personality traits start to set in. And that trauma could be anywhere from physical abuse, sexual abuse, um, terrible fighting in the house with the parents. It could be a death, loss, anything that could happen in childhood that could really shake it up for you, okay? That could really shake a child's understanding that the world is safe, taking them from believing that the world is a safe place to then thinking that the world is not a safe place and is against them, and how are they going to survive it? Okay, so this is where narcissism is sort of born out of childhood trauma. Now, what I've noticed in my lifetime and in my studies and in my practice, that there's a lot of men who come in who are narcissistic that have been severely bullied. So being bullied as a child, which can be, really severe, can often cause narcissism. It's not just abuse in the home necessarily. It could be really any kind of abuse, any kind of trauma, and bullying absolutely fits right in there. So when the child feels that all of a sudden the world is not safe, maybe mom and dad don't have my back, or maybe mom and dad aren't around and everyone else has a mom and dad, or maybe I'm being picked on all the time, I'm being bullied, I'm being beat up. A child has to develop a way to survive that pain. And let me be clear that everybody who's had these, traumatic incidents is not a narcissist. So I want to be really clear about that. Some people will go that route and some people will not. Why do some and why don't some? I don't have that answer. I think there's probably many reasons, but we don't really know for sure. So it begins in childhood trauma when a child, and often boys, feel so beat down and so insignificant and so insecure that they build this alter ego that is full of a lot of bravado. And that's sort of where it begins. And they put out the bravado to protect their ego, to protect their emotions from being hurt. And it's also a story that they have to tell themselves, because when you're getting beat up every single day on the playground, or you're being abused every single day by your brother or your parents or whatever or whoever, how else can you really, if you think about it, it's sad, how else can you survive in a way when you have no coping skills but to sort of develop this alter ego, this other layer of skin that will kind of protect you? And you will never meet a narcissist that didn't have childhood trauma. It won't happen. You might find that maybe one parent is bullied by the other parents, and that can start to create some narcissism in the child. When the child is around a lot of imbalance of power, they start to understand that romantic relationships, like between mom and dad, are about power and control rather than about love and equanimity and give and take. So there's a lot of broken, I don't know how to say it, there's just a lot of broken pieces to the narcissist. And when you really look at how it forms and in childhood, it's kind of sad. But when they get older, when narcissists get older, they get meaner and they get more, they develop an inability to connect emotionally to other people outside of getting their own needs met. And I'm sure if anyone here has ever been around a narcissist or lived with one or dated one, you know what I'm talking about. So we're looking at how it starts, and it always starts with childhood traumas. Usually the more violent childhood traumas breed more of a narcissistic personality. And the reason that men tend to be more so narcissistic than women, at least traditionally, although I think that's changing, is because men are supposed to be, tough and strong. So if they're getting the crap beat out of them on the playground every day, or, they're getting beaten by, their teachers, or which I've had clients who that's happened to back in the day, or you're getting, physically or sexually abused in the home. These are all things that are going to, that make a man feel very inferior, because men are supposed to be big and tough and strong. And so if they're getting their ass beat every day, they feel really, really tiny. And so here goes the narcissism. It begins to grow. So when you're looking at a narcissist in front of you, you can be sure that they had some severe trauma in their childhood. Okay, that's for sure. And that's really how it develops. Now, as it develops, it could go either way, right? So depending on the kind of parenting will dictate very much so, oftentimes, not all the time, how severe the narcissism really is. So if you have a narcissistic child blooming and blossoming from childhood trauma, and then you have a parent that then rejects them, okay, then they feel even less significant. Let's say then you have another parent who feels guilty that the other parent isn't around and spoils you with everything they can think of and never tells you no. Well, that's just the perfect recipe for a narcissist, right? An imbalance of discipline, never taught boundaries, never told no, never taught social graces, never was, taught by a parent to, be respectful, or to, all the things that hopefully our parents, taught us at some point. So you can see, as I'm putting the pieces together and I'm talking about this, how this develops into a train wreck. But it develops out of a lot of pain. And again, I don't want to be repetitive, but I want to put a disclaimer that every person who goes through these horrific things in childhood does not become a narcissist. Does not. And there's probably some narcissists out there that didn't have a ton of trauma, but might have been terribly spoiled, and watched a very unhealthy relationship between the parents. Usually, again, that imbalance of power. So, a young boy might see his father, dominating his mother, and he might think, oh, okay, that's how I treat him. I'm going to dominate, and that's how I can make my mark in the world, and that's how I can be important in this world, is to be dominant and to be, kind of do to others what was done to them. And it becomes, and it builds and it grows. Okay? So now you figure we're in young adulthood. Okay? So you have a 17, 18-year-old kid who has a broken family, who's had severe trauma as a child, and is out in the world trying to survive. And in psychology, we would call it ego survival. But in layman's terms, the kid's just trying to feel good about himself. And he keeps getting beat down, beat down, beat down. And so he has to build himself up, 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 and up. So you'll see some kids will become, very submissive and antisocial. They don't want to socialize because they're afraid to make close relationships because of the childhood trauma. And then you see the others that become narcissistic. And I do believe that there's definitely a family trait with narcissists. I think that if you trace back generations, you'll find it, if you talk to family members, what was Grandpa Joe like? Oh, well, he was really tough. We were afraid of him, So, if people are afraid of somebody, that's not really a good sign. If someone's afraid of somebody, that means that there's a dominating demeanor that is being put out by this person that makes others feel uncomfortable. And the name of the game for the narcissist is dominance and control, or I should say control by dominance. But the narcissist finds so many different ways to stay dominant to their lovers, their children, their parent, whatever. And I'm gonna now kind of shift over and talk about some of these narcissistic traits that perhaps you guys have been living with or have lived with or have seen, and try to explain to you what are some of the things you're going to see. So as the narcissism continues to grow and blossom, it also has to be reinforced in order for it to fully bloom. So how narcissism gets reinforced, and it's kind of sad, is when nobody will correct or discipline this child. And these little sassy, obnoxious, mean kids that are never corrected or never properly disciplined or never had consequences become adults who behave like that, literally. And the reason that a lot of times they don't get disciplined is because it takes so much work and so much correction that parents and schools and teachers they throw their hands up. The system throws their hands up and they just go, you know what, I don't want to deal with this kid. Just shut him up and put him in put him in detention or something. And so that reinforces it. So then the narcissistic, young adults who, there's no consequences for anything I do. I can hurt anybody, and I can exert my dominance and my power and control over anybody, and there's nothing's going to happen to me. So, hey, I kind of like this, right? And the feeling of that power and dominance just starts to get momentum and starts to take on its own life. And as all of that develops, so does a lack of empathy. Because now the narcissist is getting their way whenever they want it, doing whatever they do to anybody with no consequences or very little consequences. And it feeds that emptiness inside of them where they felt so small. And it feeds it and feeds it and feeds it. And now the narcissist is like, I am all powerful. I can do whatever I want because I'm special. The rules don't apply to me. There's no consequences for anything that I do. So now I'm going to get even bigger and badder. And now I'm an adult and I'm really learning how to manipulate. I'm learning how to rage out and scare people so that I get my way, which is actually when narcissistic rage, if you've ever seen it, I have, it's pretty scary. You can be sure that they're having a temper tantrum like a child. And it was never corrected, and so it becomes a big adult temper tantrum. And big adult temper tantrums can become dangerous. They can be very dangerous. And they can be really a nightmare for a spouse, for the children. They will use whatever methods they find work best to get their way. And they really don't care much or connect much to how it makes someone else feel, because no matter what they do, it's somebody else's fault. It's never their fault. It's never their fault. They never take responsibility for their behavior. So as the narcissist then starts getting into romantic relationships, look out, ladies, okay? Because and look out, guys, for the female narcissist. But it's a whole nother ball game, okay? Narcissists can be very charming. They can be very exciting. They can put on some of them can put on a decent act for 5-6 months, and people fall in love with them. And then as soon as the narcissist has you where they want you, which is under their spell and under their control, look out. Look out. They will, go for any method to tear you down. And the reason they like to tear other people down is because they feel really so small and insignificant. And people will say to me, but Elizabeth, narcissists are so full of themselves and they're so cocky. They certainly don't seem like they're lacking in self-confidence. And what I have to explain is it's an act. It's an act. And narcissists can be very Jekyll and Hyde. They can go out and be the most charming, kind person and just, work the room. And people will go, oh my God, Elizabeth, your husband is just, he's so wonderful. And then it's like, well, live with them. It's a whole nother story. It's a whole nother story. So they are Jekyll and Hyde, and they will adjust their behavior to the audience. So if they're around family and close friends and family that they feel safe with, that, they know they can just, treat however they want and they'll never be left or have consequences, they can really act up crazy. And they act up crazy, especially with their spouses and children. And there's a rage even in the quieter narcissists, which we call covert or backdoor, I call them backdoor narcissists, that their attacks, their manipulation, their put downs, their tear downs are quiet. They're not rageful. And so nobody suspects them. And what they'll do is they'll say, to their wives or children, make sure you don't, gain any weight because no one will love you. Make sure you get good grades or you're going to be, a loser if you don't. And they go real subtle dropping lines that are mean and kind of tear someone down. So I've seen this I've seen it in my office. I've seen it amongst, people in my life over the years. And it's really difficult to detect until you're married to a covert. The other type of narcissist, the one that is much easier to spot, the one that most of us are like the poster child narcissist, is the rageful, screaming, braggadocious, need for constant admiration, a-hole, basically. And so those are the patterns that we're much more familiar with. But there's two types of narcissists, and if we're talking about female narcissists, you kind of have to add in a lot of other things because female narcissists tend to be histrionic, and that's a whole nother topic for another night. But female narcissists tend to act out their manipulation by flirtation, using infidelity, just being a big cheater, just to put it bluntly. And the male narcissists are known to be womanizers, many of them too. Not all of them, but probably about 50 to 60% of narcissistic males are probably cheaters. And women, I would say female narcissists, like, we're talking close to 100%. I mean, nothing's ever 100%, but, we're talking, big time, but these women are usually really, really easy to spot because they have the body parts hanging out all the time and the, stiletto high heels at, their kids' soccer game, and everything's popping out of everywhere, and they have the biggest, brightest makeup, and you can't miss them. You can't miss them. They're very easy to spot, but men fall for them. They think they're sexy and charming, and then before you know it, it's a disaster. And really the same thing happens with women. They get very charmed. Many narcissistic men are quite successful. They use their, intelligence and their manipulation to, just steamroll and get where they need to get. And, that's the main focus, right? That's just the female narcissist's main focus is to attract men and as many men as possible and engage with as many men as possible to maintain a type of control. And everything becomes about, male or female, everything becomes about them. So some of the traits that may sound familiar to you of a narcissist is I always tell my young female clients when they're dating how to spot them. And I said it's very simple. When you go on your first few dates, if all they do is talk about themselves and they don't ask much about you, you can be pretty sure you're with a narcissist. Pretty sure. Never 100%, but you can be pretty sure. Because narcissists love to hear themselves talk. They're really not interested in anything about you except how can you make them look better or feel better about themselves or achieve their own personal gain. So when you go out or you're married to a narcissist, and it breaks my heart to tell people this, and they'll say, well, did they ever really love me? And I'll say, I don't know, because narcissists aren't really capable of love the way healthy people think of love. Healthier people think of love as an even exchange. I'm there for you when you need me. You're there for me when I need you. We work as a team. Of course, we're going to fight and have disagreements, whatever. Nothing's perfect. But it's understood that both of you are important. Both of your needs have to be met. And you work towards together fulfilling both needs. And it doesn't always have to be one person's way or the other person's way. You learn through being together over a while. You learn how to adjust these things and work through them. Not with narcissists. It's their way or the highway. And you can approach a narcissist and try to have a conversation about yourself, but the spotlight will quickly go back to them because they're not really interested. They're not interested in what you have to say. I remember a guy I dated many lifetimes ago who was definitely a narcissist, and he was always talking about himself. And if I ever wanted to share something about, my childhood or my past or something, he would get like he couldn't stand it. He just couldn't stand. He had no interest in what I had to say, and he just wanted to get back to him and his agenda and what he wanted to do, and that was it. And female narcissists, not that different. Okay, they just have, male and female narcissists have a little bit different of a method of operation for how they try to gain dominance, power, and control. But the mindset is the same, that everything's about me, everything. So if, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example because there's so many, but okay, let's say you call a narcissist or a narcissistic person, and I'm sure we've all done this before, and you want to talk about maybe something that you're struggling with. Somehow the narcissist has this amazing ability to manipulate whatever you're talking about and make it about them. I remember a very narcissistic friend of mine from many, many years ago, when my mother died, he called to give me condolences on my mother's death and went right into his parents and how he can't stand either one of them, and just went on and on and on and on. So what's wrong with that? Well, if someone just lost their parent, you're not gonna, a normal thinking person wouldn't call that grieving person and talk about how much they dislike their parents, right? Because it's like, okay, wait a minute. I'm grieving and you're calling to complain about your parents to me? Like when I just lost my mom, that's not appropriate. And narcissists have an inability to connect to your emotions. So they will boast and brag. So let's say you are, really struggling with your weight and you're dieting, okay? Your narcissistic spouse would be like eating, chocolate, candy, and pizza and fried food in front of you and not even connect that might be rude, right? They're always thinking about themselves, their needs, their wants, their desires, and never thinking about others. And it's very clear Because I know as I'm talking, people are probably, calculating in their mind, is my husband a narcissist? Is my wife or my sister? We all deserve to be heard. We all have, the spotlight in our relationships to talk and share. And we all have needs that must be met in order for our relationships to thrive, or thrive the way we would want them to. So trying to get your needs met is not narcissism. It's not. So going to your partner or your mother or your dad or your sisters and brothers and saying, hey, I really feel like, we don't spend enough time together, and, blah, 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 and I really like if you spend more time with me. And you can say that to a narcissistic person, and it's going to be a blowout. It's going to be flipped on how dare you, ask me for more time. I'm so busy, and don't you see all the responsibilities I have, and blah, blah, and they'll go off. And somehow you're like, well, I don't know how we got here. But that's what narcissists are very famous for. Everything's about them, never taking responsibility, and they really do not connect to other people's feelings. They really don't. And people will ask me, do narcissists, do they have feelings? And it actually took me a long time of really thinking about it to come up with the answer. And my answer is, they have feelings for themselves. Because people say, well, he must have empathy because he cries at movies, and and he's so, he sends, money to the starving children in Africa, and I'm like, well, again, is it being done because he genuinely, is heartbroken over, starvation in Africa, or is he doing it because it makes him look good? There's a big difference. Does he cry at movies to get you to think that he's sensitive, or is he authentically moved? And it's really hard to tell, because narcissists are phenomenal actors and actresses. I mean, really amazing. So it's a tricky thing. And if you feel like, gee, never talk about me and my life, we always talk about his life or her life, and never ask me what I need, you might have someone with maybe just narcissistic traits, maybe not a full-blown narcissist, but narcissists do not have patience or interest in learning or hearing anything about you or anything. The only thing they're interested in is getting their needs met, looking good, associating with people who they think will up their image or up their agenda. And if you can't do anything for a narcissist, they're going to not be interested in being friends with you. If you call out a narcissist, oh my gosh, look out. They will discredit you and tear you down into shreds of nothing. So if you're the friend that knows your friend is with a narcissistic male or female, and that narcissist knows that you know what they're up to, they're gonna build up an assassination of you, because they're gonna discredit anyone who they think is onto them, or anyone who doesn't agree with them or think they're the most fabulous thing that ever hit the earth. They have no use for anyone who doesn't kiss their ass, constantly compliment them. And we all like compliments, right? We all like to be uplifted. We all like to be, told how wonderful we are. That's part of love. But narcissism is a different level, and it's a one-way street. It's a one-way street. So I'm going to go move into this piece of image. with narcissists. And I'm going to leave the last half an hour to go over your comments and questions and everything and see if anybody has, things to say. I see that you do. Okay. Awesome. I see so many faces and things going on. So, well, maybe what I'll do is, before I go into the whole image and all that, let me stop and because we do have an hour and a half. So let me stop and let me read the screen and see what everybody's saying. So, okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you all so much. Hello, Bernice and Kelly and Jackie and Chad is here. Catherine, you're here. Oh no, I'm sorry you were in the ER. I hope you're okay. Okay, so let's see okay, so far we have Eric waving and he says, being with someone who only admires themselves in every aspect of their own life and demonstrates no interest in the other person's interests or feelings. Yes. One of the things thank you for that point. One of the things that I find interesting about narcissists, to your point, is, I lost your comment. Where is it? Okay. Demonstrates no interest in the other person's interests or feelings. Man, I had a point. Being with someone who only admires themselves, admires themselves in every aspect of their own life, and demonstrates no interest in the other person's interests or feelings. Okay, to that point, what I was going to say is, I've had so many people over the years come into my office and, they'll say, they won't tell me, the narcissistic stuff right away because they're afraid to, it's hard to come to terms with that when you're married to one or dating. It is. So it might take a couple sessions until they really start telling me the truth, but I'll already know because I know the behavior and I'm so familiar with it. But a lot of times they'll say, I'm married, I have kids and I have a family, but I feel so lonely. And, of course, realistically speaking, there could be so many reasons for that. Not necessarily narcissism, but that will put a red flag and I'll say to myself, okay, let's watch for this or look for narcissism with the spouse because, that was just like a little warning sign, a little flag. So when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you can feel really alone because the narcissist doesn't really care what you want to do. They don't care what your needs are. They just want to do their thing and then just have you on the side to meet their needs whenever they feel like they need it. So it's not about two people going out of their way for each other. It's about one person going out of their way all the time and the narcissist spouse never going out of their way and expecting the other person to do everything. And there becomes a very vicious cycle there where there's a lot of enabling the behavior. And if you think back to what I said in the very beginning, when narcissism develops, that child was never held accountable for their behavior. So it becomes a big adult that was never held accountable for their behavior. So they kind of, I've heard people, describe their narcissistic family members like animals, because they just, which is actually an insult to animals in my opinion, but I know what they mean, that they're just like a bulldozer and they just come in and do whatever they want with no, thought or connection of how another person might feel. A smaller example is, they may blast music in their car, like out of control, and then you get into the car, and naturally, like if I'm blasting my music and I'm by myself, that's one thing, but I would never have someone else in my car or pick someone and like crank the music up so loud and not even talk to them. I've seen this before, okay? I've seen this before. I've seen all of these traits. And so if there's no more comments or questions, which, okay, there are. Okay, so let me put this back on. Okay. Okay, so Marjorie's saying, my husband a long time ago helped my cousin do some work at their house they were selling. They sent us lobster as a payment. He got mad and said that he didn't want paid that way, just invited to the lake cottage. He has made a lot of comments where he wasn't good enough for them. Okay, so maybe what you're saying is narcissists feel like they're never good enough for anybody. So they pretend like they're just the greatest thing that ever happened. But if you bring them around people who, you know, might see through that, they're going to find every excuse in the world why not to go or not to participate or whatever, because they don't like getting uncomfortable either. So maybe, you know, that's kind of what you're alluding to. So, okay. So if there's no more questions, comments, I'm going to jump into the piece about the image. Okay. So narcissists, all they really do care about is not only just their needs and their wants, their desires, but also how they look to other people. And so that's why if, you know, they don't think that they look good to other people, they will, instead of just saying, you know, I feel kind of uncomfortable around your family because of blah, 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 you know, they will just not go. And they'll make a big fight happen, and, you know, flip it on you, and you'll be like, whoa, what just happened? And you'll be going by yourself. You'll be going by yourself. Because narcissists are not going to get uncomfortable, and they're not going to go anywhere where people don't think they're the greatest thing that ever happened, because they need that constant admiration, because they really don't believe it. They're very hollow, and they really don't believe that they're worthy. And if you think about it, it's hard enough for any of us to think it in this life, but with, you know, with that emptiness of narcissism, it really becomes quite challenging. So, you know, image, narcissistic people are usually very flashy. And again, I don't want to make it like all flashy people are narcissists or all, no, that's not true. But certain signs, when you already have a person who's not talking to you about yourself, not interested in you, not asking you about your life or, you know, what's happening and, you know, all that stuff. And then on top of that, you know, they're having rageful outbursts, turning things around to the point you think you're crazy. Okay. And then they're flashy with their money or the way they dress, or, you know, whatever they can do to make themselves appear to society as being top of the line, super rich, super cool, super whatever. They're going to go for it. They're going to go for it. So sometimes these people really stand out, you know, because you're like, whoa, okay, check that guy's outfit out or something. Or check out what she's wearing, you know. I think she forgot. Wow, okay. So yeah, it's just, it's in your face. Sometimes narcissists have tonight's kind of like a teaser for what I was going to be talking about tonight. I want to go over it because it has a lot of important points in it that I don't want to forget. So I put up a post, I think yesterday or the day before, 10 signs you are dealing with a narcissist. So if you already read this, I'm sorry for being repetitive, but I want to keep it, I don't want to miss any important points. 1, okay, they never take responsibility for anything they do, especially hurting your feelings. Okay, so let's break this one down a minute. So if they've hurt your feelings and you tell a narcissist, hey, you hurt my feelings, they will deny it, spin it. They will, the most you'll get is a sorry you feel that way. You're never going to get, oh my gosh, I'm really sorry that I hurt you. oh my goodness, I really understand where you're coming from, or God, I'm so sorry that I hurt you. That makes me feel bad. They don't care. They don't care. So, so that's that. Everything they do is way more important than anything you do. Okay, so in relationships, no matter what the narcissist may do for a living, whether, whatever they do, they could be a janitor, a fisherman, a CEO, and everything in between. They are the most important person on the earth, and they're definitely the most important person in your household and in your relationship. So they will go on and on ad nauseum about all the responsibilities they have, and nobody understands them, and blah, 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 because they're so, into their own everything, that they think their problems are the biggest. They're always a victim of everybody. The whole world is against them, and they're a victim of everybody's everything. And, and remember, when I'm saying these things, I'm talking about behavior in excess, not once in a while. We all get like this once in a while, right? We all get cranky, and we all get, defensive, and we all get pissed off. That's normal. But when it's just a constant pattern that they are so much important, and what they have to do is so much more important than you, it becomes very disrespectful. So if you've been with a narcissist, lived with one, you know that. They make empty promises. They feel so important that you should be willing to accept whatever they give you concerning time, attention, and concern. You're just lucky to have them. So narcissists will also, they will do that. They will think that they're just so amazing that you're just always going to stick around. And a lot of narcissistic men get left. I've seen it quite a bit in my practice. And they're like, why? I thought our marriage was fine. I thought everything was perfect. And meanwhile, then they come into my office, and it's just like, what planet do they live on? That they think that behavior is okay, or the way that they talk or put down their wife, or it's fascinating because they have no insight into their own behavior, not much. So they really just think they're so amazing, and they bring so much to the table that who would leave them? They're great. They're the greatest. They're in control. They're in power. Who's going to leave? Who's going to leave a guy like that or a gal like that, And then eventually people can't take it anymore. And then they leave. Okay, they expect you to feast on relationship scraps, and since they are so amazing, that should be enough. So, because the narcissist is so important and so busy, and what they're doing is the most important job on the planet, okay? They don't have to give a lot of time and attention to their children or their wives or their husbands, because it's so important what they're doing that it takes precedence over their relationships. But really, the reason it takes precedence over their relationships is because they want to do whatever's going to make them look good. So if they get a lot of admiration at work, and that's where they get all the, the accolades and the ass kissing and all that, then they're going to want to be there all the time, and the kids and the spouse will just be on their own. So many times when I meet spouses of a narcissist, it's like they feel like they've been alone in their marriage the whole time. So, because the other person's always ingrained in, excessive hours at the office, usually is what it is. Today I heard excessive hours in like sporting, that this gentleman gets up at 3 or 4 in the morning and does all this stuff, and then goes to work, and then after work goes back to doing that stuff, and he's been doing that for years and thinks that that's good enough for his partner. And it's not, it's not. That's not good enough, because that is becoming completely self-absorbed and not understanding that your significant other might want to be talked to or held or taken out or just talk nice to, and so I see that quite a bit. um, they subtly tear you down piece by piece until your self-confidence is gone. So narcissists can be very rude. They like their mouths just go and they don't care, and they can say very, very hurtful things to people. I was actually I was actually at an event over the weekend, and I met an older woman was talking to me, like really like in her 80s or whatever, and wow, I mean what she was saying to me was like incredible. I mean it was so narcissistic, and I just kind of went along with it, because that's what most of us do, and that's why they're never held accountable. When am I going to at an event turn around and say, gee, you're really full of yourself? No, I'm not going to do that. And no one probably does it. So she doesn't even know. So she's going on about how wonderful she is and how, every man's in love with her and blah, my goodness, she was going on and on. And then this other person came over and she just turned right around and said, boy, it looks like you've really, put on some weight. And I thought, oh my God, I'm so uncomfortable, because narcissists will do things like that. And they will do that systematically to their lovers, their partners, because they want their partners to feel so small and so disempowered, so that the narcissist can always feel powerful and empowered over you or over whoever. So they're not going to be nice. And any problem that will come up in the relationship will be your fault. You don't do this enough. You don't do that enough. You. You'll never hear we should work on this or we should work. It's you, because they tear you down piece by piece by piece by piece until you feel like you have no confidence left. And it's very sad when I get those people in my office, and I get them all the time, who've been so beat down by the narcissist. So living with a narcissist is like being left alone in an ocean that you thought you were sailing on together, and so the absence feels really thick. And then on top of that, you get told repeatedly that you're never enough in one way or the other. You're never good enough. You're never enough. Never enough. And most people who go with narcissists, that marry narcissists and stay with narcissists, a lot of times have their own issues, of more so insecure. They're usually the nicest people, but they have their own issues of trying to be perfect, and so they get into this cycle where you're not good enough, not good enough, so okay, I'm going to try harder, I'm going to try harder to get your love, I'm going to try harder and harder and harder, and then they burn themselves out. And I see it so often. They don't feel anyone's feelings except their own, and that's pretty self-explanatory, and we talked about that. So when people say, do narcissists have feelings, because they're usually known to lack empathy, do they actually have feelings? Not for anyone but themselves, really deeply. I mean, do they love their children? Yes. But are they going to be able to meet their children's needs? No. So the child will feel like, gee, my dad or my mom is like so distant and it's kind of scary and always moody, and I never felt like they loved me, because the narcissist is not emotionally available. So they don't really know how to love a child, how to nurture a child, how to nurture anything really but themselves. They become enraged when you challenge their position. So I think we all know here tonight that you cannot argue with the narcissist. You can't do it. They will never agree to disagree. They will not hear your side. As soon as you start to talk, they're going to talk over you, and they're going to twist it and turn it around, and they might start screaming or crying or whatever childish behavior they can pull out to get diversion from the topic at hand. And they get super defensive. So it's basically like talking to a wall. So I always tell people, don't waste your time, arguing with a narcissist. It's a total waste of time. It's not going to work. So with narcissists, it's much better for the partners to show their position than to say it, because narcissistic people don't hear you. They don't hear you. They only hear themselves, and that's it. That's the way it is. So, just imagine in the last hour what I've described sounds like, kind of a nightmare. And it is. It is. They're always right. We know that. They feel so insecure that they try to make you feel even more insecure than they do so that they can have power over you. So a lot of times, and this can go for really any abusive relationship, okay, whether it's involving narcissism, which usually does. All batterers and abusers are narcissists. And that's just the beginning. They probably would go, like, once you start getting into that, behavior where, you're really, harming, children, or, raping or things like that. Okay, that's like a whole nother show. They're narcissists. They're also sociopaths. Not all narcissists are sociopaths, but all sociopaths are narcissists. All of them. So, yeah, I forget what point I was on, but what was I talking about? They're always right. Oh, they try to put you down. So a lot of times, like, for example, what narcissistic men will do is they'll pick on their women's appearance, because women are super sensitive about that. And female narcissists will pick on, they'll first, if the husband isn't making good money, they'll go after that. You're a loser. You can't provide for the family. Whatever they can find to really hurt, they will do it. They will hurt you deeply and not care. They're perfectly okay with it. They don't care. So don't fool yourself. Don't make excuses for them. They genuinely do not care. And the ones that maybe are in the middle and they care a little bit, they're only going to extend themselves so much to be there for somebody that they'll always have to pull it back, because they can never be in an equal relationship. It always has to be power and control, power and control, power and control. It can never be an equal coming together of two people who love each other. It's, how can I have power and control over you, or how can I have more power and control over you? That's just the way it is. And if you're listening to this and you have a narcissistic spouse, you're not going to change them. And we're going to talk about, in the last 25 minutes, we're going to talk about how to cope with them. Narcissists are all about power and control, not love and humility. Okay, so I got through all of that. Okay. So, I've described in the last hour, we've talked about what is narcissistic personality disorder, technically speaking. We talked about how narcissism develops in children and how trauma is usually always involved, almost always involved. Lack of discipline, lack of consequence, little baby temper tantrums left uncorrected become big adult temper tantrums when they're older. That narcissists use manipulation through, put downs and, hurtful comments to make you feel less than, and they do this so that you can never leave them. I'm going to bring it down systematically with little remarks and put downs and blow offs and ignoring you and playing with you, games, however I can to get you to start to go crazy so that I have power and control over you, and you'll never believe that you can get anyone else, and you'll never leave me because you think that you're not, you know, you have no worth left. If someone's telling you how worthless you are all the time, you know, you're going to start to believe it, unfortunately, very unfortunately. So described all this narcissist stuff, all this, you know, bad behavior that we get from the narcissist, all of this stuff. But I think the last 25 minutes, we should talk about what we can do about it. What can we actually do about it? I have a hair sticking around. It's bothering me. Sorry. What can we actually do about it? Well, not a lot. Not a whole lot. And I'm sorry to say that, but there isn't a lot you can do. You know, people send their narcissistic spouses into my office all the time, and it does not usually work out very well. I do have a way of treating narcissists that I sort of developed on my own, and I'm not going to give that away, but I have my own method for doing therapy with narcissists, and it seems to work pretty well, but change is very, very, very slow, and therapy takes a really long time because first they have to trust me, which takes a long time, and then I have to have enough trust with that client where I can then start confronting them on some of their behaviors and having them accept that. So that's, you know, something that's takes a good year plus to kind of establish that. But I'm not telling you that the narcissist is going to really change that much. I mean, they might learn self-control, and they might learn how to sort of minimize some of their behaviors, but overall, they kind of are what they are. And it's very hard to take somebody who doesn't feel emotion and teach them emotion. And that doesn't matter if it's narcissist or someone with Asperger's or autism in adulthood. It's I don't know if emotion is something you can teach. I've tried. It's not worked very well with clients. If you just don't connect and you don't have a conscience, I don't know how you teach that. So generally, when I get clients that I'm, you know, of course I make sure I'm 100% correct before I do this, but, you know, I sort of poke around, investigate, talk, and if I find that, you know, my client is definitely with a narcissist or really anybody who is, you know, toxic, makes them feel bad, I will try to counsel them out of that relationship. And a lot of times it's tough because, you know, when I'm dealing with people who've been married for 30, 40 years, and I do, you know, it's really difficult for them to get out as opposed to maybe someone who, you know, they were dating for a couple years. But that's always going to kind of be my angle unless you tell me that you're just 100% fine with staying with the narcissist, that, you know, it's fine for you, you don't care, like, you know, the other aspects of your life, you know, outweigh the pain or whatever. And I've seen that too. And so if you come to me with that, then I'm going to kind of say, okay, then we're going to have to really work on you, heal and empower you to the point where it doesn't hurt anymore. That you're so like empowered within yourself, which isn't a bad place to be, that you can see things from a perspective that when people are hurting you, it's not really about you. It's about them. It's about how they're perceiving you or what you did. Okay? So I might counsel them to kind of like that higher awareness. But I mean, still, it's narcissistic relationships are really bad for your health. I mean, I see people come in with, oh my gosh, all kinds of physical ailments, after being with narcissists, nervous disorders, rashes, breathing problems, worn out immune systems, because they're always in a state of high alert, and their adrenaline's always up because they're always, wondering when they're going to be attacked by the narcissist. And narcissists can be so cruel and loud and cunning in the household, and they'll do it in front of the kids, and it's very hard to live with. It's very hard to live with, and I would never encourage somebody to put up with it. But I would really, if we've done a lot of therapy and that was their choice, I respect that. I would wish for something much better for my clients. Doesn't always happen. So what can you do when you're dealing with a narcissist? And this is tough. You have to be very restrained. You have to be very disciplined. And you cannot get into an argument with them. It is the biggest waste of time. And narcissists love to argue. And why do they love to argue? Because they're always right. And they love to be right. And they love for you to be wrong. So they're ready to go. They are ready to fight. They are ready to go. And why give it to them? You're feeding the beast. And I'm sure if anyone tonight is my client, they've heard me say, when you respond to that text message, when you give into that, you're feeding the beast. You're feeding it. And it's going to grow bigger and bigger and bigger and uglier and uglier and scarier and scarier. It's not getting better. It's not going to get better. It is not going to get better. It will only get worse, because the more they get away with it, the worse their behavior becomes. They can be on really good behavior the first couple months that you know them, so they can suck you in. But man, once they think they have you, look out. Look out. So you never want to get into an argument with a narcissist, and that might be some ego work for you to do, because the narcissist is always going to be right. They're always going to scream louder than you, and they're always going to act meaner than you. So don't waste your time. So if, what I say to narcissists that I've been, in contact with over the years is when they start to argue, I always say, you know what? I'm not going to have this conversation right now because you're acting crazy and scary. Or I'll say, I'm uncomfortable with the way you're acting right now. So I'm going to leave this situation. And when you the narcissist, feel that you can have a calm, decent conversation with me, then come on back. I'm open to having the conversation with you. But the thing is, they never do. So they will then ignore you, probably. And again, try to, ignore you or bombard you or, whatever they can do. They'll play around with different mind games until they can really, get you where they want you. So it's not easy. So don't get into it with them. Just politely, excuse yourself. And you might have to do that like over and over and over and over again until they get the message that you're not putting up with that. You're not putting up with it. And even then, you might get a little bit better behavior for a while, but then it's going to revert back because narcissists can't really help themselves. It's their personality that's ingrained. It's patterns that are ingrained, and it's their whole self-image is wrapped up in this dominant, power and control dynamic. So it's really hard to have a nice conversation with a narcissist when you're emotionally involved with them because they have a different agenda. They're not looking to resolve anything. They're looking to be right. So sometimes I've said to my narcissistic clients, few and far between, because they're not coming to therapy, but I've had a couple, and I'll say, is it better to be right or better to be kind? Which one's more important in the end? And that's worked with some of them. It's not so important to be right if you're hurting somebody, is it? It's just better to just be kind. And so the narcissist, they don't really get that because it's win, 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 and take, and dominate. So you want to just keep a distance. You do not want to get into an argument. You don't want to get in a text message battle with them, waste of time. You don't want to scream. So the most effective way to communicate with a narcissistic partner is to write letters, not text messages where they can respond back right away, and definitely not phone conversations or in-person conversations because they're going to go completely haywire with a narcissist. Completely. It's not going to work out for you. So I always recommend writing it down in a well thought out letter so that they have the letter and they can read it and reread it and reread it and reread it and reread it. And there's some time and space in between where you might maybe get some sort of possibility of a reprieve, but it's not going to solve the answer. It's just a way that you might want to try. You might want to just try. Letter writing's good. And then you can always pull up the letter and say, because they're going to also flip that letter around to something else. And then you can, okay, let's sit down. Let's look at the letter. Okay, this is what I didn't say that you were this or that. This is what I said in the letter. So, you almost have to be like with a kindergartner because they're not listening. They don't care. And the only time a narcissist will ever give a crap about you is if they think you're going to walk out the door. Because, and I'm sorry, it's not because you're so great. It's because, oh my God, someone's leaving me. That's killing my ego. That's the ugly truth of the matter. So, okay, let me check the screen in our last 10 minutes and see what, if anything, what people are saying. Okay. All right. Okay. My gosh. Okay. Oh my God, there's so much stuff going on. Okay, let me see where I left off. Okay. Maggie Strayer, welcome and hello. Constant up and down builds you up to knock you down. Gaslighting and making you out to be crazy. Yes, 100%. Narcissists are in every type of relationship. That's right. They can be children, brothers, sisters, spouses, parents. Again, there's no one way that it has to be, of course. They are insecure. No one will ever please them because they aren't happy with themselves. Okay, that's a really good one because I want to just stop on that one for a second. So narcissists, in order for them to stay in power and control, do exactly what Catherine's saying. They will, no matter what you do, it's not going to be good enough or right. It's just not. So people married to narcissists feel often like they're in this double bind. So the narcissist will say, do it this way, and you'll do it that way. Why'd you do it that way? You should have done it this way. And so you start to lose your mind and think you're going crazy. And it's just one of their games that they play with you to just keep you down. To keep you down and to continue to have power over you. Okay, Eric says, Maggie, they definitely try to make you feel like something is wrong with you. Absolutely. Everything you bring up to them somehow gets turned back on you every single time. Every single time. They cannot have a decent conversation. They just can't. They can't talk about anything. They can only yell about everything or ignore everything or, always turn it back on you. So if you say, gee, I'm really upset because, you forgot my birthday. No, you forgot my birthday and you don't ever remember anyone's birthday. And by the way, how about that Christmas gift and what your mother did and blah, blah. And they just go off on this crazy psychotic circle and you're just like, wow, what? And you just, it makes you crazy. So that's a really good point. I spent a long time wanting closure. You'll never get it from a narcissist. No, you won't. Staying in the hurt mindset does no good. That's just giving them more power over you. Took a lot of time for healing and growth and learn things about myself so I don't get into that relationship again. And thank you for sharing that, Maggie. And that is right. Everything you said, I agree. It does take a good amount of time to heal. I mean, I would almost say a couple years in a lot of ways. I've worked with some people for a couple years after getting out of that kind of relationship. I mean, it takes a long time. And the only way that you can really heal, I think, and a lot of therapists might disagree with me, but is, first, yes, you've got to do some self-reflection, some work, some therapy. But then you got to get back in the game. You have to give it a shot, because when you give it a shot, then you start healing more, because you see how far you've come and you see how far you still have to go, and you can kind of work through that. But, you don't want to give up on love because of a narcissist, They definitely make you feel low about yourself. Yes, they do. Waiting for reasons as to why someone hurt you or didn't appreciate you is like waiting for wet paint to dry. Isn't that the truth? Wow. Moving on and forgiving yourself for allowing yourself to be treated that way is closure. And more importantly, is the value of the lessons learned for your future. And as a matter of fact, Eric, I just put up a new, like a cover photo on my Facebook page, and it says something like, how much of your life or how much time have you wasted trying to get someone to love you who just doesn't know how to love? And I think that all of us here tonight who are interested in talking about narcissists have made that mistake. Whether, again, it's our kids, our parents, or it doesn't matter the relationship, but we keep trying to get love from someone that's just not interested in giving it, or is so miserable they just don't know how, and it's not our fault. And at some point we do have to ask ourselves that question: at what point are we going to stop begging or fighting for someone to love us or to treat us nicely? Right? It doesn't have to be a struggle, but when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you will struggle. Love will seem like a prison, or I should say relationships will feel like a prison. You'll be miserable and distracted, and it will eat away at your soul to a certain degree. So I thank you for saying that. Absolutely. Rationalizing or minimizing extreme behaviors or excusing the pattern, but the pattern continues and is constantly minimized, rationalized, blame shifted onto you. Yeah, blame shifting is like a term I'm hearing. Actually, like it. It's a good pop psychology term. Blame shifting. So again, it would kind of be like that example. If I called and said to my narcissistic husband, you forgot our anniversary, and I feel like so hurt. You forgot your anniversary, and then the narcissistic would be like, "Who cares? What? It's just an anniversary. What's the big deal? Didn't I buy you like a nice enough birthday gift? And all you care about is yourself, and blah blah. And they're just blame shifting, and you're just like, whoa, right? It's crazy when it's happening. It's like, and they're so loud and so crazy that you just kind of sit there, and it's like, because you don't want to get into that stuff, but it's tough. It's very, very tough. And they do minimize everything they do. I don't do that. I don't do that. Okay. Right fighters. Oh, right fighter. Yeah. Is a narcissist capable of loving unconditionally? No way. No. Narcissists really don't love. Again, as painful as this may be to hear, because nobody wants to think that any time spent in a relationship was, meaningless. Or, if it's, a child or brother, sister, or whatever, nobody wants to hear that they aren't loved or they weren't really loved when you feel like you've really loved somebody. Um, it's a hard pill to swallow. So I would say this. Um, Narcissists are the most conditional lovers on the planet. They love you when you're doing everything the way they want it to be. And when things get tough or they have to be put out or asked to do something, forget it. It's not happening. It's not happening, and they become awful. So they are the most conditional lovers, conditional people. They give their love to bait you, and then they take it away from you. And they give it, and then they take it away from you. It's a lot of mind games. So no, they do not love unconditionally. Um, you know, I like to be positive and say that some narcissistic people, those oddball, odd man outs, odd woman's out, they could have loved you or love you on their terms and what it means to them and how they see it. But it's probably never going to really line up or align with the way you see it. So maybe it's not fair to say that no narcissist can ever love a little. They're definitely conditional, but maybe they can love a little bit. But the way that they love, and I'm putting that in quotes, the way that they demonstrate or feel affection is more in line with their needs. It's not like, I guess the best way I could describe it is, let's say you see like a sick puppy, on the street, like a little puppy, and it's sick and everything. And if you take it up off the street, that you're going to have to deal with, fleas and ticks and worms and, and it's going to become a responsibility. But you see this poor little animal suffering, so you go out of your way and you take the puppy in. At least I would, I have and I would. Because you feel for the dog. You feel for the puppy. That's love, is being able to really, not just love for yourself, but really feel some of the feelings of other people. And I think that's where love is kind of built. And loving yourself too. But if you look at that puppy and you go, ugh, I don't want to deal with a sick puppy, but you know what? If I pick it up and I take it to my, my girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whatever, they'll think that I'm like really nice. So I'll just do it because it'll make me look good. And I'll, take a bunch of pictures of myself on Facebook and Instagram and look, I saved a puppy today. I'm so great. So that's a big difference, right? The person who stumbles upon the puppy and feels for that poor little animal and will go out of their way and change their life to help this poor animal. Or am I going to pick up this animal and take pictures because it make me look good? Or am I going to be completely heartless and just leave it and do something horrible to it? Ugh, that's the worst. So I hope that explains some things. So wow, we're an hour and 29. I'm just about to lose my voice, but this was wonderful, and I really hope that this information and this talk tonight was helpful to you. And I thank you guys so much for attending and being here. And please, before you go, don't forget to like Actuation Counseling and to follow my page so you get all of my posts and lives and updates and all that stuff. And if you're on Instagram, at ELizTherapist on Instagram and YouTube, just hashtag The Rebellious Counselor and my channel will pop right up, and you can please subscribe. There's lots of good stuff there too. So that being said, it's been a long night, but it was a pleasure. Thank you for watching Elizabeth Stadtlander, the Rebellious Counselor, marriage and family therapist, and mental health counselor tonight on this special event, Living with the Narcissist. So I wish all of you a lot of success and love in your relationships that are currently existing or new ones yet to come, and that you always feel loved by the person that and the people that you surround yourself with. And if you find that that's not the case, you all know how to reach me for therapy and counseling sessions. So again, thank you all so much for coming tonight. I thank you all, and I will see you guys this week on the Rebellious Counselor Live on Wednesday night. If I have a voice left, we'll see. I will let you know. Have a great night, everybody.